Coming right up, Straight Talk with Art Levine. Our guest tonight, Fox News political analyst Juan Williams, as we continue our 20th anniversary year.
Closed captioning provided by Scan Health Plan.
Opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect the views of Charter Communications nor its sponsors. We recognize our obligation to present opposing points of view by responsible spokespersons. For information, please contact the director of program.
She stands in the face of evil and will not lose hope or faith. America, the land of freedom, is still the home of the brave. So raise the banner, call no glory. Let us join our fellow man. History will write the story. America will always stand.
Straight Talk is brought to you in part by Southern California Edison. For over 100 years, life powered by Edison. The Press Telegram, your local news leader for over 100 years.
Join us for tonight's edition of Straight Talk. And now your host, Art Levine.
Good evening and welcome to In Conversation. I'm Art Levine, professor of ethics and legal studies in the College of Business Administration at California State University, Long Beach. Our special guest tonight is Fox News political analyst Juan Williams. Juan, welcome to our show.
Art, good to be with you. What a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
We're delighted to have you here on our campus. You are our 5th annual distinguished speaker, and we were able to bring you over to the studio to do this special edition of our shows. And
well, let me just first say that 20 years for this show is a real hallmark, and the idea that you created it, that you've sustained it. I think that people far beyond University of California system, State College, you know, we all just think that you are one of the heroes of the business, Art. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Juan. Well, Juan has recently published his book, Muzzled, The Assault on Honest Debate, and it chronicles in part the well-publicized departure of Juan from National Public Radio. Juan, tell us about that whole episode.
Well, you know, it's been a year as I'm here at Cal State Long Beach. Literally, it's a year now since I got a call from the top news executive at National Public Radio asking me what did I mean to say. And I said to her at the time, she was talking about an appearance I had on Bill O'Reilly's show on the Fox News channel. I said, I meant exactly what I said. I said what I meant. In fact, for a while, Art, I thought that should be the title of the book. I said what I meant to say. But what happened was that I had said on Bill O'Reilly's show that, you know, when I'm in an airport to this day, now we're 10 years after 9/11, if I see people who are dressed in Muslim garb, to my mind, first and foremost, identifying themselves as Muslims, I have some anxiety, some nervousness about it. And I said, you know, this is something that is not politically correct, but the fact is that Muslims did attack us on 9/11. Bill O'Reilly had gotten himself into some bit of a snit with the ladies on The View, and he had asked me, he said, where did I go wrong, Juan? And I said to him, look, you know, I'm not going to play politically correct games. The fact is those people who attacked us, not only were they Muslims, they said that they were engaged in jihad. They were using their faith as a justification for this act of terror. So I said, you know, I'm not playing games with you, and I said, I feel nervous in airports to this day. Okay. And then went on to say, but of course, I don't seek to stereotype anybody. I don't think it's a good thing. America's a land of religious liberty. I don't stereotype my fellow Christians because
And
of
most
Timothy
Muslims
McVeigh.
are not terrorists
Right.
or anything
so,
like that.
So it's very clear. That's what I was saying. But 2 days later, here I get this call that you're talking about, Art, and the woman says, "What did you mean to say? This is bigotry. This is a violation of our journalistic standards, and you're fired."
And you were hired, just for the record, by National Public Radio as a commentator.
Well, I was initially hired as their afternoon talk show host for Talk of the Nation, then as the senior correspondent, and then as their news analyst. So my job was to be a commentator, which has far greater latitude in terms of what I'm allowed to say than a straight news reporter.
Sure. So you were commenting, and they didn't like your comments. And just for the record, Juan had worked at Fox News for 15 years and had preceded his employment by National Public Radio by 5 years. So when they hired Juan at National Public Radio, they knew he was a analyst on Fox News.
Correct.
And but it was kind of an open secret that the new news head was not happy that you were also on Fox News when she came aboard.
Well, you know, it's one of those things, Art, where for 10 years, you know, whenever this issue came up, management said, wait a second, actually, this is good for us. This exposes NPR's talent to a new audience to NPR people.
There you go.
And they felt I was practicing journalism. I wasn't doing anything there that I wasn't doing at NPR. Different roles. It's a cable news channel on TV versus a radio operation, but nothing illegitimate.
Yeah.
And then this lady comes along and she doesn't want me even to identify myself as NPR when I'm on Fox's primetime shows. Then she wants to distance the relationship by saying, instead of being an NPR staffer, why don't you get on contract? But the minute, Art, that I got on contract, she started cutting my pay, diminishing my role on the air, and then I think she was looking for a moment where she could fire me, and she used this in that way.
Yeah. Well, as we know, she eventually got fired for firing you.
Well, you know, they brought in a legal team to look at this because, you know, it's unbelievable. But a year ago, this was all over the front pages, all over the newscast in America, and they brought in some people to look at it. And what they came away was, you know, there's no such standard, and there was no such justification, and there was internal criticism. And then all of a sudden, she left.
And Fox News and Roger Ailes, its head, stepped up to the plate and actually gave you a nice increase after this happened.
They compensated for what I had lost by losing my job. You know what Roger Ailes, who's the head of Fox News, said at the time was, he said, I don't want you to have to go home and tell your wife you lost money because of what happened here. And that's what he did. It was very gracious of him. And I must say, the one other thing on this front, when, you know, this whole thing happened, I thought my career was over, Art. That night, when after she did that, I didn't sleep. I thought, you know, who's going to want to deal with me? I'm labeled as a bigot, a bad journalist. You know, I just thought NPR is such a loved brand. They've got microphones in every town. You know, so it felt to me so personal and a very personal attack. And then what happened over the next several days as this thing was on every front page and every news story on the TV, I realized this is much bigger than me. That there were Americans who were saying not only do they also have this feeling when they're in airports after 9/11, it's not like people are making it up or people are being, you know,
you said what you felt.
Yeah. So people are saying to me, oh yeah, I've had that feeling. But people also said to me, Art, you know what? Have we reached a point in this country where you can't say what you feel?
Yeah.
Is that what's going on?
That is powerful. Those are both powerful arguments. So the tide turned, really.
The tide turned.
And you were very abject and depressed and low, and you didn't know whether this was a career ender or whatever. And then you see this tide turning in your favor, and what was your feeling?
Well, you know, it turns slowly. I mean, for example, after the woman fires me, then subsequent to that, well, let me just say one thing here. In the course of the firing, I said to her, you know, I worked there 10 years. Have you seen the entire transcript? Did you watch the entire show? Because I'm arguing for religious liberty and tolerance. And she says, we don't need to see anything more. We don't. I said, but I worked there 10 years. Can't I come in and can't we talk about it? She said, there's nothing you can say, nothing you can do. You're fired.
She's digging herself in deep.
Well, but okay, but a few days later, the president of NPR before TV cameras and microphones says, whatever Juan Williams says should be between him and his psychiatrist, like I'm a crazy person. And that don't listen to him because basically some publicist is putting words in his mouth. Like I couldn't do an interview with Art Levine. I couldn't possibly engage someone of your intellect.
Well, if you'll, this is my phrase, but this to me seems to have elements of a public lynching.
Well, it's a heavy statement.
Yes.
But what it felt like to me was I was being buried.
Yeah.
And that they felt free. They put out the word. You know, I told you that this happened late on in the afternoon, that the woman called me to fire me. And I didn't do anything about it. I didn't know what to do about it. I was so worried. Yeah. And then my cell phone just starts blowing up. The New York Times, the Associated Press, NPR, all of them are calling to say that NPR has put out the announcement with great pride. They're trumpeting that they've gotten rid of this bum. And I'm like, what is going on? How could I possibly defend myself against this major media corporation as an individual?
Well, it's a powerful story, but look at the result. You have a New York Times best-selling book out, and you have a lot of new friends.
Well, and you know, what's interesting to me is how much people say we need honest conversation in the country.
Amen to that.
And so if you can't even say that you feel nervous because of the history of, and it's a legitimate history, you can't, it's not disputed, a history of a tie between radical Islam and terror, if you can't say that, well then how can we have honest conversations about immigration? How can we have an honest conversation about debt in the country or budgets or how to deal with abortion, gun control, anything? In other words, you're not supposed to say what's on your mind. You're supposed to bite your tongue. And people are fed up with it, Art. I think that's why I got the support that I got.
Well, let me just expand the point because I agree with you entirely. We're facing a national election now. We're watching the Republican debates, and there'll be someone running against President Obama. And we need to have honesty in our political dialogue.
Right.
No one is talking about the real problem, the elephant in the room, the entitlements. They push that aside and talk about other stuff. And I think there's a certain intellectual dishonesty on both sides in failing to address the real problems.
Well, this is so incredible to me. I'm so pleased that you brought this up. Because if you say, as a Democrat these days, listen, there's got to be some adjustment in terms of everything from Social Security to Medicare to Medicaid. Entitlements are eating up a huge percentage of the budget, and they're growing. And so we have to rein them in order to preserve the programs. All of a sudden, Art, hey, why are you bringing this up? You're giving ammunition to the other side. You're not a good Democrat. Now, let's flip it over. If you're a Republican.
And you dare say maybe we need a tax increase.
Yes, we need some added revenues because we're in terrible shape here. And you know, the rich should pay some more taxes. And you know what? If the Democrats, if we want the Democrats to give us serious cuts in entitlement, we're going to have to do something on the revenue side. All of a sudden, no. Why are you even saying that? Yeah. You're a bad Republican. You're a rhino. You're a Republican in name only. So in other words, you have got to fit exactly in a box. You've got to obey the orthodoxy of the far right or the far left, and people in the middle who want to have an honest conversation want to say, hey, you know what, we need to do something. We're bad people. We're weak-kneed. We're spineless. We're the worst.
I have a title for your next book.
Tell me.
It's Lonely in the Middle.
How about the skunk in the middle of the road? But the thing is, you know what? There are a lot of us, Art.
Yeah.
You know, there are more people in the middle who actually want to have a discussion, who are sick of being told, shut up, you're going to be treated like you're ostracized, marginalized, you're not a good person. People are sick of that stuff.
Yeah. And particularly here in California. Okay, we'll be back, but we have to pause for these messages.